So this is Unlocking RCS Revenue, and we wanted to have this webinar. We brought Miriam in. She's from Sinch, and I'll let her introduce herself in a second and talk about her expertise. But she came in last night. We had a great dinner. We're going to be doing a Whiskey and Wireless podcast after this because we didn't want to do the Whiskey and Wireless podcast before this. But after the last 3 minutes, I kind of wish we would have, but that's fine. We're here and everything is good. Over the last few years, I've seen you at a lot of different events, and I think one of the last times I saw you was in Barcelona in a castle.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And we were talking RCS, and someone from Sinch said, "Let's go meet the expert." And we walked over to a castle, and there you were. I mean, I thought it was fitting. So I know that I've been involved in RCS for the last couple years because of what's going on in the regional space. But RCS has been a conversation for a lot longer.
It has.
So talk a little bit about your expertise and how long you've been in the messaging business.
Yeah, so I've been in the RCS space since about 2018. I was with Google for a while there, but I've been in the messaging space for over 20 years. So a long time now, lots of different messaging experiences, SMS and other platforms. And it's great, and I love it. And RCS is really changing things, and we'll talk about this more, but we've been saying that for a while. I've been saying it since 2018. But I think it's it's real this time. We're real now, finally. And it's really exciting. And I've been at Sinch just under 2 years, supporting RCS globally as the RCS commercial product manager. Really excited to be here talking to you today. Great dinner last night.
Yeah.
Looking forward to more castles in Barcelona soon.
Yeah, we'll be there soon enough.
Yeah, it's exciting, and I'm ready to tell everybody all about how they can make money and how everyone's making money in RCS.
Yeah, I think one of the things that one of the reasons we wanted to do this and address it is just because RCS feels like Lucy in the football, right? It's like, this time I'm really going to let you kick the football, and then she pulls it out at the last minute. I have two children that turned 16 in the last, 5 or 6 months. And they both were not alive the first time they started talking about RCS, and now they're driving. So in the regional space, they've heard about RCS over and over and over again. And so I wanted to have this to kind of say, why is it different this time? Why should I care this time? And how am I going to make money in the space? Because really that's all us at ClearSky are thinking about, is not getting RCS turned on for regional carriers. We want that, of course, but we want that next step of how are they going to be able to make revenue with that?
Yeah, so I think there's the reason, start at the beginning. The reason that RCS is real this time is, in the past, when I started in 2018, you would send an RCS message out, and it would go to a few people. It would go to a fairly small, small percentage of the list or your opt-in list or whoever you were sending it to, and that has changed. So on a lot of the big carriers around the world, you're seeing over 80% reach today with RCS, with some fallback to SMS still, and that continues to grow and it continues to expand. And you're seeing real performance, and you're seeing really big enterprise brands leaning into RCS and sending RCS messages. You can now, a big change over the past couple of years is that RCS is available on both Androids and iPhones, which was different up until, I think it was about a little over a year now. It was only available on Android devices, which, especially in markets like the US, really limited its reach. There were other markets where that wasn't as big a deal. But it really limited its reach. So I think why now? That's why.
That is why. Yeah, for sure. Apple getting in the game kind of changed everything.
And the carriers, are on board. They're supporting it. We sort of have this model now that just makes a lot of sense. And then in terms of why carriers care about it, there is a revenue stream, right? RCS is gotten a lot of advantages over SMS. It's not totally replacing SMS, but it has a lot of advantages both to improve the user experience and to drive some additional revenue for carriers.
Yeah, and I think that's really what it comes down to, like you said, is getting the regionals involved. You said the carriers in the U.S. are on board, meaning the tier 1 carriers.
The tier 1 carriers, yeah.
And so once AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile decided that they were going to do this and let it in, then that made the enterprises and the brands really take notice in the United States. And now they can replicate some things that they've done outside of the United States
Right.
here in the US.
Right. With reach, with most people now getting those messages.
Right. And I think the important thing for the regional carriers that are on board here on this webinar is just the fact that when brands come in, and when they change what they're doing, and RCS is a slight change to what they're doing from A to P. It's not going to completely submarine the A to P market, but it is going to improve it and make it a lot better. And so they do want 100% reach. So even though the regional carriers are a smaller percentage of the overall population, it is important to these brands and these enterprises that they have 100% reach in RCS if they're going to switch the way they communicate to their customers. They have to have that 100%. So that's why it's really important that we get everyone on board. That's why it's really important that you understand your role as a regional carrier in providing RCS. And that's why we got involved a couple years ago, and through our partners like Sinch, we have agreements now where we can send RCS for business. And I do want to mention that real quick because it's always funny. For years we talked about RBM, RCS, and RBM, which stood for Rich Business Messaging, I think, right? And
RCS Business Messaging, acronym within an acronym.
Acronym within an acronym, okay. But now it's just RCS for business. It's RCS and RCS for business, and that's how the industry wants to go forward. So, in the screen behind us, you can see kind of an example of an RCS and why it is so different and so much better. As I document well with everyone I talk to, I have 6 kids. So Christmas, we did a lot of shopping, and Best Buy actually sent me an RCS, right? And when I bought this product, and it was cool because it was very graphical. It had the options things and all of that. But then I bought another product and they sent me a regular SMS A to P. So seeing those two things side by side, it was really cool to see the difference.
Right, you can see the difference. And it's you talk about having the chips, the buttons, and the graphics, but even just something as simple as having the branding in there. So just having the fact that it came from Best Buy, that it comes from the brand that instead of that it comes from a random number. That's a big deal, right?
That is a big deal.
You know who is sending you that message. It's a verified sender. It's secure. It gives you peace of mind. So even without some of those rich features, which are huge, I think that's one of the biggest,
Yeah, and so enterprises now see that they can have that brand, that logo show up in your inbox, and it is almost like an app-like experience, where they can get that right to their inbox. So very important for that. And now that the big 3 are on, we are going to start seeing more and more enterprise come on. So our regional carriers want to know, kind of how can they get involved, and that just means that you need to get off what Google calls their guest cloud and get to your own Jive instance, and ClearSky or Google can help you with that, either one. So you can reach out to us or your Google representative and do that, and that will help with some of your P2P RCS stuff that you're having as far as group chats and all that. But what we really want to talk about is the enterprise, because that's really what you've been living and breathing. So have you seen a lot of the enterprises come in and start using RCS?
We have. We've seen a lot of shifting and a lot of interest. Enterprise brands don't always move super fast. So, but there's been a lot of interest. It's grown significantly over the past year and a half. So you will see a lot of bigger brands getting those RCS messages from them. And a lot of them take different approaches. So some of them have simply just started, converting their existing SMS and MMS messages in many cases over to RCS. So they haven't changed a lot. They haven't necessarily started using all those rich interactive features. They're taking advantage of the branding, the verified sender. They're taking advantage of improved reporting, because you know that messages have been delivered and sent and things like that. So they're taking advantage of that, and they're converting their existing OTP messages or their existing delivery, confirmations or coupons over. And then we have another subset of customers, and you could probably get them on your phone more now spontaneously than you did in the past. of brands that are doing more exciting and more adventurous things, taking advantage of some of those richer experiences. They're sending cards, images, carousels. They're sending suggested actions or chips so that you can start to have engaging conversations. You can click on a button instead of a random URL to open it up. But yeah, we're starting to see a lot more enterprises express real interest. To your point, I think reach has a lot to do with it. It is not 100%, but it's pretty close. So they do still send fallback messages to SMS or MMS when they need to.
Right.
But that change in reach has really had the impact that we were hoping it was going to have.
And I think it started, as you would expect, probably with a lot of the Fortune 500 type companies, and then it goes down to like the Fortune 1000 type companies that are using RCS for business. And that's and as it continues to go down to almost small business, which we will start seeing. That's why we want to get the regional carriers involved, because some of that A to P that people are buying now, and that I know ClearSky and other competitors in the space are writing checks to the regional carriers for, or at least they should be. So we're writing you those checks and you get used to that. But now, one of the things that ClearSky does is tries to protect that revenue for the regional carriers. And so RCS is one of those things that's great because it's a new communication, but it also can take away that A to P, which could take away revenue from the regional carriers. So that's why we want to get everyone up and running on that so they can get the benefit of the RCS revenue.
Yeah, and RCS allows a lot more opportunities longer term than SMS does. So while SMS is great for sending notifications, for sending alerts, for sending a quick, simple message, RCS really opens up a lot more possibilities for richer, more engaging experiences where you're going to start to have conversations and things like that. So we're seeing some of the existing use cases come over, but they're also building on it. So new things that weren't necessarily running in mobile can now really be supported there. Things that you used to really just drive to the website for, or to a mobile app for,
or an app, right?
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
So when you talk about is RCS going to replace A to P? Sure, in some cases it is, but RCS is also going to replace when you used to use an app or when you used to drive people to the website. Now you can use RCS to do that. So we do see that we believe that the carriers are going to start making more revenue on that RCS messaging than they do even today on A to P. It's going to grow for a variety of reasons, but the most of which is the use cases that people are using.
Use cases.
Yeah.
Some things you do in email today, I think, also.
Right. Yeah. And so as you can see, and as we talked about, it's why now is just because not only are the tier ones involved, and the tier ones are pushing this, and then you have Apple and Android that are able to receive those, but now you have major aggregators like Sinch that are going out to their enterprises, and they're actually doing that education process as well, right? You're having to educate the enterprises on all the benefits of RCS.
Absolutely, yeah. We spend a lot of time doing that. I love it. It's great. It's great getting to talk to all the big enterprise brands about all the cool ways they can use RCS. So yeah, we spend a lot of time showing them the different use cases. How can you improve your sales experience? How can you improve your customer support experience? Really that entire journey.
And they've seen results, right? We're at the point now where companies are seeing results.
They are.
From using RCS instead of A to P.
Yeah, we have a bunch of case studies. I think most of the case studies we have published today that we can share, or there's a bunch of Europe ones, some India and Brazil, but we'll have some North America ones coming soon. So I can share more about that once we have those. But yeah, we have a bunch of really cool use cases. A lot in the retail space, helping people improve their shopping experiences and select products, and it's visual. What's the a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Right.
You put that that carousel of images in there, and that's the equivalent of quite a lot of text messages.
It really is. So. Yeah, and it's so cool because it gets your mind kind of racing as far as all the different things that you can do with it.
As soon as you look into the options, you Yeah, I could go all day about all the different things RCS
Right.
can let you do, but I think we have a time limit here. So
Well, not a big one.
Not a
We
big
can
one.
do whatever. Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, so that's why we want the regional carriers to be involved. And one of the things that we talked about with the regional carriers is I'm a believer in RCS, and I'm a believer in the ROI that RCS can bring. And I believe that the regional carriers are going to make more money off of that RCS, rev share that we do. And then as we get all the aggregators signed up, then all that demand is ready to go as soon as you guys are up and running on RCS. Not really a big part of this webinar, but just to say it, when is that, right? So reach out to ClearSky and we can help with that, or Google directly. Some of it's going to be Apple and the carrier builds and when they're going to be available. We're working with all of those companies to make sure that we can get you guys up and running as quickly as possible. And there are deadlines with those carrier builds. And so if you want to talk to me outside of this about that, certainly available to do that. But really it comes down to having all of your devices working for RCS for all of this. But in the last couple of years, I've heard more about entitlement servers than I ever have in my life.
Same.
Right? And I've heard a lot about RCS. One thing that I wanted to mention is from the time you started, maybe, 8 years ago now, the market's kind of changed a little bit, right?
It has.
And as far as pricing and how it gets done.
Yep.
Yeah. And so no one is there. There are a handful of experts in today's RCS world, but there's not a lot of experts all the way around, and that's why we wanted to obviously bring you in.
Thank you.
Yeah. So when we believe in RCS and we believe it for the carriers, we also start talking about building RCS agents for the carriers. And I talked a little bit about this last night at dinner, what we're doing. And so when we turn on RCS for a regional carrier, we're also going to provide them with a first person agent and create that for them. And so I know you know a lot about use cases, but I'm sure you can think of some use cases for carriers. So what are some use cases that they could use for their own subscribers?
I think they can use quite a few of them depending on the carrier and depending on kind of the communications that they do today and what they need to speak with their customers about. But it can be used for a lot of the things you use SMS for today, just in that secure environment. So are you a prepaid carrier that needs to let people know the status of their account? Do they need to be topped up? Do they need to do something? Then you can do that whole flow through there. So tap to top, to top up. Are you a postpaid carrier that sends out an invoice? You could send that invoice out, overdue notifications, payment collections, that kind of stuff. All of that can be done through RCS. You can market promotions. You can get people signed up, right? You can RCS. I think another change that we've seen is really RCS for years was just a way to push messages out to people. There was no way for a user to initiate those conversations, and that has changed. So conversations can now be initiated. So you could have a QR code, you can have a link you can click on, and a customer could click on that and discover a carrier and sign up for a carrier and do that whole process, on their old carrier and switch to their new one or whatever that is. And customer support. I think in the carrier space, customer support can be a really, really promising experience on RCS. It's expensive to do customer support. People make phone calls. Having someone there to handle that phone call is expensive. Web chat can be great, but you wander away from the website and the chat expires, whereas the phone is always in your hand to hold on to it. So you could do that using, AI agents. You can do that using humans. My preference is a combination of the two.
Yeah.
But it's a great way to provide effective support for customers, and it can save a lot of money just because chat tends to be one of the more efficient ways to do that.
Yeah, when we talk about revenue, obviously we're talking about revenue as far as you getting money, but we're also talking about cost savings, right?
I mean,
and that's where the support thing comes
support and not having to chase someone for payment and getting people to top up. They're all different ways to make money or save money. But yeah, then there's the revenue that you get when enterprise brands go live. And to your point, we're already working with them, and so are many people in the market. And when these carriers all come on board,
these agents are going to be ready to launch. It's not like there's a ramp up. They're already live.
Yeah,
today.
there's money waiting for them
Yeah.
right now. Yeah. And so we're going to do that first person agent. And one of the things that we're going to do is build a kind of an onboarding thing. So the very first message that a new subscriber would get would be an RCS message from the carrier. It's got your logo there in the inbox. So now they know, and the salesperson can explain this is this means that it's coming from us, right? And you can trust this, and it's coming from us. And some of our regional carriers have to reach out to people because they get government money or whatever, and so they have to say like, what are your use cases for the internet and all this other stuff, right? So they can get some grant, and they have a hard time because people don't answer the phone. People don't like to reply to just some random text.
Right.
And then if it just has a link in it that's, you know, a weird looking link, they're not going to click it, right? Because we've all been down that road too many times. So having this trusted, secure way to communicate with your subscribers is going to be very important. And then if there's an outage, right, in a certain area, they know it's coming from you. And then, you know, you talked about it before with retail. You know, what kind of ROI can you get when you're now using RCS to sell headphones or do any of that?
Exactly. And to your point on the, you know, on that welcome experience, you don't have to link off to a website anymore. Yeah, it looks more secure because it's a button, but also you can actually have that back and forth within the chat itself easily. Yeah. It's tapping a button to kind of move you through that conversation. And I just want to say the other reason I love first party apps for carriers is I think it will help the whole industry. I think it will help enterprises become more comfortable with it too, because once the carriers are using it, once that becomes part of the everyday usage, then that's just going to become more and more common. So if the first thing you get when you sign up for a carrier is you get an RCS message, then you're going to start to expect RCS messages, and you're going to start to want those RCS messages and understand them as a consumer. That higher level of expectation of a branded message versus an SMS from
an SMS, right? And so that was our idea too, right? Which will roll into the next thing. And I don't know where we are in the slides because can't really see it as much. But yeah. So when we use the first person, you know, a lot of these regional carriers, a lot of you guys out there, you know, you're the biggest businesses in your area most of the times, right? You're the number one hire in your area or close. So you do have a lot of those people. So if you start using that SMS, that RCS, as soon as someone comes on board, man, how great is that for exposure? And then you can start doing the third part of how to make money on RCS messaging. First part being messages itself. Second part being using the first person agent to sell your own things and save money from customer support and all that. But now the third thing is now you can go out to businesses in your area and you can start selling that as a service, creating agents for people. And we'll, you know, if you went with ClearSky, we'd give you the ability to do that. But there's also other people you can call as well. But now you can go off to businesses and you can start selling as part of, you know, your salespeople's toolkit, RCS agents and using RCS to communicate to their customers. And I think that's kind of cool to have a whole bunch of people's boots on the ground to sell. Yeah. And you think it's mid-market is fine for?
I think mid-market is great. I mean, you know, we've said this a lot today, but the branding, the verified sender, that's all really important. So having companies that have that, right? Companies that have the icons, the logos, and the brand name to sort of be able to put in those places, be able to get that verified sender. I think as long as you have that, which certainly mid-market brands do, then you're in a great position to launch RCS, and it's not that hard. You know, we again talked about it a bit, but you don't have to jump immediately into all those complex use cases. You could start simpler and then grow and expand those use cases to do more over time. So a lot of times I think when I talk to companies about RCS, we lead with all the cool, exciting stuff you can do, and that can be a little bit scary.
Yeah.
And you can absolutely,
yeah.
If you're ready to jump in, do all those cool things, please. I would love that. Let's chat.
Yeah.
But if you're not, that's great too. You don't need to. You can start kind of anywhere in that. You know, we refer to run walk, run, fly. So you can start in a kind of walk, just pushing out the messages, or you can
Walk,
go right
run,
to.
fly. That
right.
seems very optimistic. I like that. It's better than what crawl, walk, run.
No,
or
we're
something.
beyond SMS was crawling.
Oh, okay. Oh, I
we're
get it. All
beyond
right.
that.
Okay. Yeah.
So you can start anywhere within that cycle and just start sending.
Yeah, and I think that that's where it becomes important is with that, just getting that logo in the inbox. I think if we could all just get the logo.
The logos in the inbox are big.
Yeah.
Improved reporting is really big. You don't have to be doing a lot to get that improved reporting. And just getting people used to those experiences is great.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's 3 ways that that we can you can either make money or save money in the U.S. with the regional carrier market, and then in the Caribbean, because we do have some Caribbean friends that are on. In the Caribbean, we talk about a replacement for, or at least they use WhatsApp a lot, and they're not in that revenue stream most of the time. And so now this is a way to kind of bring back more into the revenue stream.
And that's also a really good case for first party agents. Be the lead with that and do show how it should all work. And
again, because there's usually only 1 or 2 in the country, and so then that shows subscribers how to start using.
RCS. It's a great experience. Lot of similarity in many ways with WhatsApp. So if brands are used to that, then they should be in a perfect position to do RCS as well. Maybe they'll choose to start with some use cases on, if they're using WhatsApp, they'll keep some of those use cases on WhatsApp and start with some on RCS. There's a variety of reasons why RCS might make more sense.
It always makes more sense to the carrier, right? Because
it does always make more sense for the carrier.
Because they want to keep that revenue there.
It needs to make more sense to the brand for it to do it. And I think brands getting started with RCS, again, you don't always have to do everything. You can get started. So you can move a few use cases over. There might be pricing reasons for it, right? Different use cases might make more sense on one. Different experiences might make more sense on one or the other, and it might make more sense for certain verticals or things like that. And so you can start to, enterprise brands can start to move those things over and try them out and see what works for them.
And I think that's what we're going to do with the first person too, because we know all the use cases that are out there, right? But we'll start with the onboarding, and then we'll talk to the carrier's marketing department. We'll talk to the carrier's networking department and say, kind of what other use cases can we do for this? And then the great thing about, having a collective of regional carriers is the fact that we can say, hey, this worked for X customer, you should try it now, and then we'll all kind of learn together.
Right, you'll continue to optimize and improve, and that is, again, we'll talk about reporting. That is one of the great things about RCS is it's because you get so much information, because you really can see what's performing and what's not performing. You can continue to evolve, and continue to really make sure that you're providing a great experience that's working well.
Yeah, and I just love the fact too that, as you've said a couple of times, there's already is demand out there. It's just waiting. So it's not, let's build it and hope they come.
Right.
It's as soon as we build it and get RCS up and running, you're going to be in a position to make money. And so for people that have had that football pulled out from them for 3 or 4 different times, and so the regional carriers, they only have so many people that can do work, right? And the same guy that's doing this project is doing 3 other projects. That's just the way the regional carriers work. So sometimes if they hear something over and over again for a decade and a half, they might say, well, I'm not going to put priority on that, right? But
I get that.
Yeah, and it makes sense. It does. But but now, because of all the factors that we talked about, and just to repeat, the tier 1s and then Apple and Google, because of all that, and because now we're able to go and kind of make it easier for the carrier, so they don't have to, if they don't want to, go to all these different individual companies themselves, and they can just call us. It does warrant that you should, take some time to really explore it, and let's find out how quickly we can get the regional carriers up and running, how quickly we can get the regional carriers a carrier build, all things that we're having conversations with, and all things that we're working on. And then, working with your team to make sure the entitlement server is, up to date. You can use our hosted entitlement server, all the different things that we're doing.
I think we got a question.
Is there data that can be improved payments and collections with RCS, or is this considered additional channel that may appeal to some demographics more than SMS or email? And this is from our good friend Kim at CCA, and I know you talk to a lot of carriers. So payments are one thing that we talked about with RCS in the other room as we were talking about
exactly.
this. And so there are different ways to create payments with RCS.
Yeah, so you can do payments directly within RCS, and you can do collections, and I think what makes them a great experience, or I mean, I don't know, collections are never a great experience for anybody, are they? But what makes RCS effective here is that verified sender. So if I get a message from a number I don't recognize saying, "Hey, you owe us money. Click this URL to pay me." Am I really going to pay that? And to your point, people don't answer phone calls. But if it comes from the carrier that you have been interacting with already, because you got a welcome message or you get all these other messages from, it's the branded verified logo, you're going to know who it is, and you're way more likely to interact with that, to pay something, to have that engagement there, than you are if you're ignoring it and it's not a sender,
Right.
So I think it does help. It certainly improves a lot of that experience for people, the trust, and it can be a lot easier, right? I don't necessarily have to make a phone call. I don't necessarily have to do something. I can click on a URL in the message or a button in the message to engage, or I can do some of that interaction in the chat. I can pay part of my bill today, can't pay it all.
Right.
There's a few different ways to handle that billing, which we were talking about before.
Yep.
You can use web view in the chat to pretty seamlessly allow someone to click on a URL. It opens within the conversation, and then you can do the payment there. You can be integrated with the billing platform at the carrier.
Right. So that wouldn't work for like paying your bill, right? But if you wanted to do a Black Friday sale, and you wanted to use RCS to do that, and you wanted to say, hey, or just after the onboarding, 2 days after they leave, you send them another thing that says, here are some common accessories that people use with your phone
case.
And then boom, they can click that with the RCS. They can see pictures of it. They can click on it. It says, do you want to deliver, or do you want to go pick it up? It could tell them where to pick it up using Google Maps, which could be integrated into all of that to show them where their closest store is. And then they can even just buy it right there, and we'll work with your billing to be able to put that as a CDR right onto the customer's bill, and now they can just buy it using RCS.
Or if it's shipping, you can, send another notification with your shipping information, right? Here's your shipping information, it's out for delivery. Snap a photo when it's sitting outside your door, send that in.
Right, the whole thing, and that's
kind of complete.
That's what we got with Best Buy. It showed you the product that you bought, but then it said, as you clicked options, it said tracking. And so you track it, and you could see the little guy and how close he was, and all of that.
The customer support when you can't work out how to make your headphones work, because it's on you, not them, but you need help. Right.
So we think that there are a lot of different use cases, and again, it just comes down to, as we get more and more of these regional carriers pulled up and working for RCS, then we can really start diving into that first person, which, as far as I know, we're the only ones that are offering that right now to the regional carrier spaces, building an agent so that it's ready to go. When you go, we're working with Strata Wireless right now. They're going to be our first ones that we bring up for RCS, and we're working on their first person agent right now, and working with their marketing to get logos, to get videos. Maybe you want to have someone introduce the carrier to the subscriber.
That'd be fun.
And because within the regional space, it's really all about relationships, right? It's all and that's kind of their value add over an AT&T or a Verizon, right? They're going to get someone that introduces them to the carrier that they might see at the local store or the local restaurant, right? We have a guy that works for us that used to work at Inland Cellular, and he'd say, I go to dinner and people would come up to me and be like, "Hey, can you fix this?"
Right, I had a problem
Right.
with my
Yeah, so it's
doesn't
not
work in my living room.
right. It's not always great being the face of a company, but it is cool for the regional carriers
Right.
that they can get that interaction and be able to see. The chat is open and we can see it sort of. At 57, I can see it as good as a 57-year-old can see it. So you
We
can
can lean in, it'll be fine.
yeah, you can certainly ask any questions because again, I know regional carriers hear a lot, right, and it can get very confusing. There was RCS kind of led some of the CCA discussions for years, and it hasn't been as much lately because people are really kind of tired of hearing about it. They were for a while, right? But now, like you said, that it's back, it really is time to ask the questions that you need to ask and start thinking from your marketing side and start thinking from your product side, which I think is kind of the side that you're on, is how can I use this cool channel and able to really make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just a sort of sneak peek of what you see. So you see, people click on RCS, links in RCS messages. You see that cart size can increase when people are able to do shopping, when people are able to easily access the brand, easily interact with the brand, know who that brand is. I'm gonna keep turning around.
Yeah, it's fun.
You see rich messages open really quickly, so you do see these these improved KPIs when you're talking about RCS. In many cases, you do need to it is a new way of messaging. You do need to do some optimization. You do need to kind of tweak those messages a lot to make sure that you've changed the way you're communicating a little bit because it is different, right? You're not just plopping a weird URL in a message anymore, and so it could change a little bit. But we see some great performance, and it's a pretty exciting experience.
It is. You see there the click-through rate, which is important, right? Because you're going to get more click-throughs, and that's when we're talking about the accessories. One of the people in the chat, my kids always drive me crazy because they'll be like, "Hey, chat," and I never knew what it meant, and then they explained it to me, so I get to say it now. So,
okay.
Hello, chat. They said, can you explain first person and third person? Because we kind of talked about that a lot, and again, I'm guilty of, and you probably are too, in other ways of guilty of. We live it so much and breathe it so much.
I did it earlier.
Yeah, that it's hard to. You're like, what do you mean you don't? So a first-person RCS agent just means, in my terminology, that we are creating an RCS agent for the carrier. So you're going to. I'll take Strata Wireless, and I think Alan might be on. I don't know, but I didn't get his permission. But we're building a agent for Strata Wireless with their marketing team. And so we're getting things like logos and videos and look and feel and what they want it to say. And we're building that RCS agent for them so that they can communicate to their subscribers for all the reasons that we've been talking about. And so in our terminology, that's called a first person. And that's where, and no offense to our fine aggregator friends, but we don't need an aggregator for that, right? That's just us building an agent for you so you can communicate to your subscribers. Third party, that's where they all come in, and that's where an enterprise like a Best Buy or I don't know who you work with at Sinch, but one of your
Espresso, Clarence, brands like that. Yeah.
Right. So all of those guys they have RCS agents that they want to get out to all of their customers, and so they would use the regional carriers in order to do that. Yep.
Are we sharing the slides?
Yeah. We can share those slides. I don't think there's anything horrible in the slides.
I don't think so. And I'll do a quick hype for Sinch also. So we have a load of case studies. They're not in these decks, but go to Sinch. We've got a lot of materials on RCS. We've got a bunch of case studies. We've got a bunch of posts, community pages. If you're familiar with Sinch, great. If not, we can follow up on that. But Sinch spelling is on the screen right now. So cinch.com. We've also got a YouTube channel with a lot of videos. If you're not sick of watching me yet, you were saying the other day that I seem to be.
Yeah, so I thought I was on camera a lot with all the podcasts and all that stuff, and then I searched your name the other day. I was like, man, that girl, she's on camera a lot.
I talk a lot,
but it's all good. No, but I do real quick. I do recommend that, right? So Miriam at Sinch, all you have to do is search YouTube, and there are so many RCS related videos on there.
Yeah.
And they're not long. They're very entertaining. What is it? The 6th grade ideas or whatever
Right,
for RCS.
have you watched Miriam embarrass herself on YouTube lately?
Right, yeah,
No,
yeah.
you should, right.
Yeah, you really should. It is entertaining, and it is time for the regional carriers here to start really leaning in and learning about RCS, and companies like ClearSky and our competitors. I know we'll do some of that for you, but I don't think we do that with A2P, for instance, right? And I don't know that you need to lean into the A2P market and figure out a lot about that or whatever. But with RCS, because you can use it for your own subscribers, I really do think if you're in marketing for one of the regional carriers, it's worth giving us a call and let's just talk about things you can do with that.
Yeah, so check it out. We can share some of that follow up as well. But absolutely check it out. And then how can regional carriers add third party agents to drive more revenue through RCS?
Right. And so we've talked about that a lot with the person asking that question over the years. And it is difficult because the regional carriers, as far as subscriber wise, aren't huge, right? But as I said before, they are usually the biggest enterprise in their area, right? So when we start doing those carrier agents, I guess that's a better word for it.
Carrier agents, probably, yeah.
I'm gonna change that. Everybody change it to carrier agents.
Everything you just said.
Right, about first person. Yeah. So when we build your carrier agent, right, and Miriam said that too, now the subscriber is going to see that RCS interaction, right? And so as they start seeing that RCS interaction, they're going to say, whoa, this is cool. How did you do that? I want to do it for my business.
Right.
Right. And then they're going to go to the carrier because they trust the carrier in those areas and say, build me an RCS agent and now it's going to drive more traffic to those subscribers. So the regional carriers are going to get more RCS traffic because they're selling more enterprises in their area.
Yeah, and I think at a bigger scale, companies like Sinch, we work with the enterprise brands, a lot of the mid-market brands, the national ones, global ones, to onboard to launch RCS agents. We're running them now on the tier 1 carriers. We're running them around the world. And so as you bring on, more of these regional carriers, we are ready to launch them. So we're not going to leave off the regional carriers. We want, to your point, as much reach as we can get on RCS. And so a lot of those brands are going to go live on the regional carriers as they're going live on all the tier 1 carriers as well.
Right.
So we're handling a lot of that work as well.
And we've already done the work back and forth to get the agreements ready so that RCS for Business is definitely ready to go contractually between us and the aggregators and Sinch.
Yes.
And so, there is we're going to wait and get it done then. We're already working with other companies in the ecosystem, verification companies, and I'm sure you know them well and all of that. And so we'll have all the standards in place. We'll have everything ready to go once the carriers are
right. Yeah, we're ready. We're ready to push the button to launch on anyone anyone you can give us. It's great.
Yeah. So check out Miriam on all of or Sinch itself. She said a lot of use cases there, a lot of good stuff that they have about what they're doing all over. A lot of fun things about Miriam, and I know you're going to Mobile World Congress in Barcelona again this year.
I am going to Mobile World Congress in Barcelona in a month.
Yeah, I think we have so many trips before then, but I'll be there as well.
Great.
And I know you kind of walked around the floor last time, and we're asking people, what is RCS?
That's a video.
Right, yeah, that's one of them, right? And a lot of people didn't know, but I think now that a whole year's gone by, especially in the U.S., I think people have been hearing about RCS.
I hope so. We can try again this year and see if it's more effective this year. Yeah, we're gonna have some demos at our booth at Mobile World Congress as well. And so, if you're at Mobile World Congress, if you're in Barcelona, come say hi. But yeah, we'll have hands-on demos, videos, all kinds of other stuff at our booth there too, so people can see it. Yeah, maybe I'll accost a few more passerbys. And,
stick a microphone in their face.
Stick a microphone in their face and see how that goes. Yeah, sure, why not?
And at CCA, Competitive Carriers Association, where ClearSky goes, and I think our next one is in April in Louisville. We'll have a booth there, and you can certainly come by there too and talk to us about RCS and about the things that hopefully by then we're already doing but that we're planning on doing for the regional carriers as far as building those carrier agents and getting them up and running so that you can get a better ROI from your subscribers on the things that you're trying to do.
Great.
All right. Well, there's no more questions, and we're coming up on the top of the hour, so I think it's time to wrap up and go drink some whiskey and do a podcast.
I'm in.
So, I mean, it's 11 o'clock.
I was
but,
gonna say it's noon.
Oh, it's noon. Yeah, so even better. It's fine. We'll wait 8 minutes or so, just so we can be sociable. So thank you for flying in from San Francisco.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
This was great.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for joining the webinar. I know we were a couple minutes late getting started, but we wanted to make sure that everyone was in and everything was working. We're going to try to do more of these webinars. One, because I think they're informative and I think they're important, and two, because I spent the money to build the studio, so you know,
That's
yeah, I mean, you gotta do
ROI.
it anyway, and Armani and these guys, they need work, so you know, we'll come in and do as many webinars as we can. So appreciate everyone for coming. If you have any other questions, certainly you can reach out to me. You can reach out to Miriam,
Please.
and yeah, we'll see you at the next webinar.